Karibuni sana. Welcome to this channel where we spread love and positive vibes. I want to start the video by thanking our new subscribers and our returning subscribers. We really appreciate you. We thank you so much, and we salute you. We love you to the moon and back. And today I want us to look at something that I found, and I've never thought of it that way. Actually, I've been thinking about the poverty experienced in Africa, the economy, poor infrastructure, poor everything, poor education, and all that. And this happens even to the Caribbeans. And we are always told by the West, we are the underdeveloped countries. We are the uncivilized countries. And therefore, to me, I have perceived that, and I know that is the same case with most of us. We have perceived that and believed that we are the underdeveloped, we are uncivilized, we are backward, we are behind. And this notion has actually made most of the Africans and the Caribbeans to actually believe that is what we are. And I also want to talk about the African Americans. They also think that they are backward, they are uncivilized. Actually, that is something that is perceived by most of us, because when we are growing up, that is the narrative we have been made to hear, we have been made to understand, we have been made to comprehend, we have been made to believe. But when I watched this viral video of this Arab guy, my mind sort of opened, my mind sort of understood what we have been going through as Africans, as the Caribbeans, as the African Americans. Actually, according to this guy, we are supposed to be way ahead every other nation in the world. Because remember, everything that the Western have acquired, every innovation that they have done, in one way or another, they have used Africans. Africans were used as slaves to actually plant sugarcane and look after that sugarcane until it matured. And they were also forced to actually develop these countries that we call developed countries. They were used to actually work for them. Maybe somehow the Western people do not even know how to do farming. They were shown by the slave people how to do the work in the land, how to till the land, how to plant crops, and how to actually take care of them until they became maturity they became mature enough for harvesting. I'm lacking a better word to use. So it has been made to us to believe that we have been poor, we have been uncivilized, we have been backward, and all that. But when I listened to this man, I realized there is so much about us that we don't know. There is so much that we did for the so-called developed countries that made them to be so. And I also came to understand that the Western people have actually ruined the lives, the culture, civilization of its own people. And they have also set aside its own people away from the others. In other words, the others see them as enemies. And therefore, I have come to understand that we are actually the ones that have put the developed countries where they are. If at all, they did not use us. They did not steal from us. They did not copy us. They did not use us for innovation, creativity, and all that. Maybe they would be poorer than us. I don't want to preempt what this man is talking about. I want you to watch the video, then I'll come to the conclusion.
You know, I saw someone in the comment section the other day saying that, telling me that I shouldn't say the West, I should say Western imperialism to differentiate it from, you know, oppressive Western policies. Okay, I don't know if you've ever known me to be imprecise in my choice of words. I say the West because that's what I mean. I also saw someone saying on the same video that I'm just bitter. How astute of you. Of course I'm bitter. I'm a Westerner. That means that I was taught a fictitious story my whole childhood about the West. And I didn't actually get any sort of decent education until I was an adult. And it wasn't provided to me. I had to search it out. I had to find it out. It was hidden from me. And what I found out was that I actually come from a civilization that never civilized. I came from a so-called civilization that is identical to abject primitivity. I came from a so-called civilization that's what you would expect from people who were raised by wolves. It's like your culture was dropped on its head as a baby. You know, the brain of this so-called civilization has a deformed amygdala. The prefrontal cortex of the Western mind is missing. It's like a psychopath. So yes, I learned that I came from a so-called civilization, a so-called culture that completely failed to develop. You know, we're like the moronic bully in school who pushes people around as a kid, never pays attention, never learns, never studies, and never changes. So that everyone else, everyone that he bullied, eventually surpasses him in adulthood, in every conceivable way, in maturity, in skills, in knowledge, in intelligence, in career, in health, in relationships, in everything. While he remains a stunted man-child who nobody can stand, no one wants to be around. Well, that's the West. Every Westerner has been deprived by their ancestors of a history that they can be proud of. A history that gives them a chronological record of their development, their advancement as a people. Because the West is just as primitive, just as barbaric, just as shallow, just as selfish, petty, deceitful, and immature as they were 3,000 years ago. So I say West because I mean the West. You can't divorce imperialism from the so-called civilization that imperialism emerged from. This isn't even just about the endless crimes of the West against the rest of the world. No, I'm talking about the whole so-called culture, the so-called civilization that has utterly and miserably failed its own people. You know, you literally had to suppress everyone else, oppress everyone else, burn, loot, and destroy everything that everyone else had, everything that they built, that everyone else built, everything that they accomplished, just so you could try to make your so-called civilization look developed, only by de-developing everyone else. You had to tie their hands and feet just to pretend that you could beat them in a race. And again, it's just like some dumb bully in school who cheats on his test, cheats on his homework. Okay, you'll get an A on the test, but you're still dumb. And you won't progress educationally at all. That's not going to benefit you. Your appearance of knowledge on a test you cheated on is short-lived. Whereas you can lock the smart kid in the gym locker, but he's still the smart kid. I mean, imagine, you go all around the world and smash up everything that other civilizations built, loot what they built, pillage, steal, even steal their ideas and their concepts and their philosophies. And then you sit on top of this mountain of stolen goods and declare yourself to be rich because of your own merit. And imagine telling this lie to your children, to your own children, to your grandchildren, generation after generation. How do you think that's going to go? You didn't invest in creating actual merit. You cheated, you lied, you stole, you brutalized. And then you tell your own people that everyone else in the world has nothing and you have everything because of how much better you are than everyone else. How long is that lie sustained? You cheated, you lied, you stole, you brutalized. And then you tell your own people that everyone else in the world has nothing and you have everything because of how much better you are than everyone else. How long is that lie sustainable? I mean, these are people who actually have civilizations, who actually created and built and accomplished and didn't just pillage and plunder. And there's still those people today, even though you have oppressed them, they're still those same people. And you're still the way you are. Wallahi, the West let its people down. The West let their own people down. I mean, a good example actually is African Americans. I don't know if you can think of a people who were more held back, more deprived, more sabotaged than African Americans. You took everything away from them and took them away from everything. They started in your country at less than zero, literally regarded and treated as subhuman, not allowed to learn to read or write or anything for hundreds of years. But you see, they come from a people of accomplishment to one degree or another, not a people of piracy and theft and appropriation. They come from a people who created and built and developed in their own countries, in their own land. And even though you did everything that you could possibly do to suppress them, to hold them down, to hold them back, and you're still doing that until today, nevertheless, I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that African Americans have become a global cultural superpower. Culturally, they're a superpower. Whatever cultural soft power that America has in the global South, it's African American. And China, one of the most ancient civilizations on earth, over 4,000 years as an organized civilization. You tried to destroy them, tried to poison that society with opium. America has tried for decades to destabilize and undermine and sabotage China. And they're totally surpassing. Today, they're surpassing you in everything. Their technology is better than yours. Their relations with the rest of the world are better than yours. Their economy is healthier than yours. Their schools are better than yours. Because they are a people with a history of actual homegrown accomplishment and development. And people like this, with a history like this, with a legacy like this, simply cannot be held back for any length of time by a people who do not have a similar history, people who have never actually invested in their own civilizational development. And that's the West. You're going to get left behind. You're going to get surpassed, and you are going to end up being nothing more than a footnote in history, because the peoples of the world who have genuinely developed civilizations cannot be kept down indefinitely. No one, for example, bounced back from Western imperialism and colonization faster than the Muslims, because our foundations are too strong. Our history is too strong. Our achievements are too many. Our culture is too rich. Our beliefs are too powerful. You could only inflict superficial damage on us. The whole history of Western colonialism in the Muslim world only amounts to a flesh wound. Our empire was never based on being a political entity. Political governance was a byproduct of belief. Our empire was an empire of faith. And that empire remains completely intact today. And it will always be intact. But everything that you call Western civilizational achievement is stolen from your architecture to your philosophy. You are appropriators, cheaters. Even your Greco-Roman so-called philosophers, who themselves took from the Egyptians, even these foundational thinkers of what you like to call Western philosophy, if it had been left to you, they would have all been left in the dustbin of history if it weren't for the Muslims. We taught you what they said, and when you learned it according to Muslim interpretation and correction. Their ideas passed through us before they ever reached you. So even your so-called enlightenment, your discovery that reason and rationality are things that exist, well, you didn't discover that. We taught you that. And we were able to teach you that even before any Muslim ever read Plato or Aristotle, because the Muslims are people who have always deeply invested in their own intellectual development. So the Enlightenment, Europe's big eureka moment, was just copied and pasted. You're fakers. Europe's big eureka moment was just copied and pasted. You're fakers. The only way that you can ever have an idea is to take it from someone who has ideas. And you've been historically incredibly stubborn about not developing, not maturing, not civilizing. It's really remarkable. I mean, look, even Christianity, when they tried to spread Christianity, even this corrupted version of the teachings of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, when they tried to spread this in Europe, they cravenly adapted it to incorporate already existing pagan ideas, polytheistic beliefs, festivals, practices, and so on, until it bore no resemblance whatsoever, not only to the didn't bear any resemblance not only to the original teachings of the Prophet Jesus, alayhi salam, but not even to the version of Christianity that's followed in the Middle East. Your Christianity was just a repackaging of paganism. Because again, you are dead set against developing. You're dead set against developing intellectually, spiritually, morally, and in every other kind of way. I'm telling you, your ancestors have betrayed you. They betrayed you because they never bothered to invest in your future. They never bothered to actually create and develop as a people. And they only took and stole and pillaged and pretended. So they did not bequeath to you any sort of civilization that contributed genuinely to mankind. It's a so-called civilization only obsessed with destruction, with destructive power, with annihilation, with violence and death. It literally resents development. It resents advancement and creation and building and achievement. It's incredibly negative and dysfunctional. It's incredibly harmful. You literally measure power by its ability to destroy, not to create, by the ability to oppress, not to uplift. And look, before you misconstrue what I'm saying, this has nothing to do with skin color. It has nothing to do with your so-called race. None of this is innate in anyone's DNA. That's an obscene notion. Thinking that way is in and of itself symptomatic of colonized thinking, of westernized thinking. You know, this attribution of character traits to physical traits, the attribution of virtue or lack of virtue to genetics, attributing spiritual qualities to superficial qualities. No, this has nothing to do with that. This is about culture. It's about the legacy of a culture that never matured, a legacy left to the descendants of people who thought predation and pillage was better than creation and innovation and knowledge. A legacy of underachievement as a so-called civilization that thought the ability to take from others was the same thing as merit. A culture that does not understand the importance of the means, but only values the ends, and thinks that if they can acquire the desired ends by vicious means, then they're the same as a culture that can achieve those same ends by honorable means. Like I said, it's just like a cheater. You know, it doesn't matter how I win the race as long as I win. That's the Western attitude. So even if I win by chopping off the legs of the other participants, I can still consider myself to be the best and fastest runner. You see, even if I'm not genuinely an athlete, even if I'm not actually even fast, even if I never trained and I have no discipline and I have no ability, I get to call myself an Olympic champion as long as I can get that gold medal, even if the way that I get that gold medal is by shooting the actual winner of the medal and stealing it off his chest. Everyone has to praise me as a great athlete now because I have the medal. This is literally the Western mentality. That's a failed culture. It's a culture that has failed its own people. But yes, this is not innate. It's not inherent. It's not about white people. I mean, just terms like this, white people, black people, and so on, as if any people are actually literally white or literally black. You came up with these terms just to try to impose the idea that these are opposites, even though all people are actually just shades of varying degrees. You wanted to trap people by these fabricated definitions, these oppositional definitions. But it's all stupid. Again, this is your biggest contribution to humanity that really came from you, imposing a color code on the human race. No, I'm telling you this so that you can recognize that your ancestors failed you. Your culture has failed you. Your so-called civilization has betrayed you. And you should try to come to terms with that fact so that you can potentially free yourselves from it. Because as I've said many, many times, your own so-called civilization mistreated you before it ever became powerful enough to mistreat people outside the West. They brutalized you and they brutalized your ancestors long before they ever reached out beyond their borders and started brutalizing everyone else. And even when they did reach beyond their borders to brutalize everyone else, they didn't stop doing wrong to you. And the worst wrong thing that they've done to you is to make you think that you're supposed to be proud of this history, proud of this culture, proud of this so-called civilization that has left you completely unprepared for living harmoniously with the rest of the world, living harmoniously with all of your brothers and sisters on this planet. This so-called civilization, manners or sincerity or virtue or honesty or maturity or mental and emotional stability, not to mention spiritual peace and stability. It's a cutthroat culture. It's a barbaric culture, and it has left you completely at a loss as a people. And yes, it has made you despised, it has made you blamed, and it has made you resented because of your history and because you keep repeating that history with every new generation. See, when I say things like this, Westerners get defensive, and that defensiveness is symptomatic of exactly what I'm talking about. They'll say, let's not dwell on the past. Okay, let's not. Let's look at right now, today. And you try to show me how today is any different from the past. And this is why you get defensive. Because you know that when I talk about the crimes of the past, you can't with any honesty disavow the crimes of the past, because those crimes are ongoing. And those crimes are protected precisely by your defensiveness. Well, this is a catastrophic trap that you're in. And you have to get out of it before you sink into oblivion. And no one can help you get out of it. No one is obliged to try to help you get out of it. You have to do it yourselves. Which again is not something that your whole culture or your so-called civilization has ever prepared or equipped you to do. That's what I mean about how a cheater ultimately only cheats himself. You know, when you're a plantation owner and you lose your slaves, well, you lose your crops as well, and you have nothing because you never learned how to grow anything yourselves. You're not farmers. You're like the king in Hamlet, who knows that he can never sincerely repent for his crime because he retains the crown for which he did the crime. And you don't want to relinquish your ill-gotten gains. You don't want to give up that stolen crown. So you get defensive instead of repentant. And there's no solutions for you in your own history. No return to traditional values or what have you. No, that's not going to help you. I mean, trying to go back and emulate the very ancestors who failed to build a genuine civilization and who set you on the very path to oblivion that you're on now, that's not a remedy. So-called Western civilization is a myth, and you're not going to find any solutions as long as you hold on to any belief in that fiction. Your history does not contain any guidance for you, except insofar as it shows you very clearly how not to be. You need to stop digging in those empty pockets. I mean, if you dig into the pockets of Western history, all you're going to do is get your hands stained with blood. Like I've talked about before, your history, your origin, in the wilderness of Europe, it was harsh. You were in a harsh environment, cold and formidable. And you took the attitude, your ancestors I'm talking about, took the attitude that violence and dominance were the of your culture, from colonization to marriage, from international relations to relations between the sexes. You can go as deep as you want analyzing that society, Western society, and you can see how this primitive attitude manifests on every level of that society and that culture. And then there's all the lies that you have to tell each other and tell yourselves. Because the West eventually did encounter genuine civilizations, and so they wanted to pretend that they too were civilized. So they espouse all these values and principles and so on that they never adhered to and probably and don't really even understand. And this is where so much of the cognitive dissonance comes from, because yes, you do have an untarnished human nature, what in Islam we call the fitra, the intrinsic good human nature that's buried inside you. And that conflicts with your society, it conflicts with your history, it conflicts with your actions, and it conflicts with your ideologies. And you have two ways to try to deal with that conflict. Either you actually resolve the conflict, or you just plaster it over with propaganda and indoctrination and lies. But your culture is a tumor, and it will devour the West in its entirety, just as it devours the conscience of every individual Westerner, unless they undergo some kind of psychological, civilizational radiation therapy. Just as a body rejects and struggles against a tumor, your own conscience rejects and struggles against your history, your culture, and your so-called civilization. I mean, you're really in the same struggle as the rest of us, in a way, because the West has been a parasitic tumor on the whole of humanity for centuries. And we've been resisting it. And you should too. Because it isn't any healthier for you than it is for us, truth be told. And that's the only reason why I'm telling you this. But you get defensive. And you want to pretend that that tumor is actually a vital organ. Well, it isn't. You can, just like anybody else, you can actually change. You can actually become what you claim to already be. But that can only happen But that can only happen once you recognize and acknowledge that you aren't now what you claim to be. And then you can start learning, inshallah, from the people who really are the thing that you claim to be, which is civilized.
I know you have seen the video. You have understood where this man is coming from. Actually, it was an eye-opener to realize that we have been working for these people. We have made them developed. We have made them to be civilized. We have made them to be educated, where our children were going through an education system. In other words, they did not get enough education. They could not get enough food. They could not get enough resources. Because these people actually took away our resources, took away the knowledgeable people. The people they found were innovative. They could be taken. I remember there is this innovation that was done in Jamaica and then taken away from them, and it was declared that it was an innovation from somebody else. That is how much we have been used, we have been utilized, we have been made to believe that we are the underdeveloped countries, we are uncivilized, while in actual sense, we have been the ones that have put the Western people where they are. We have seen so many Jamaicans actually doing a lot of work in what we call the diaspora. They have actually made the diaspora proud in athletics, the diaspora proud in innovations, the diaspora proud in teaching career, in nursing, in fashion and beauty. And yet, they are the ones to get the glory, whereas we continue being called poor, we continue being called underdeveloped, we continue being called poverty-stricken states. And every picture or photos of people dying of hunger are taken, and we are considered that we are dying of hunger, yet we are where we are because of the Western people. It was very, very eye-opening to listen to this man. He actually made me to understand where we would be. While the Western are not actually the ones that have made themselves, we are the ones who have made them. We are the ones that who have actually contributed to their development, contributed to their civilization, contributed to their culture. And he particularly mentioned the African-American culture is actually so rich than any other region in America, because we have actually made them to develop, made them to be who they are. And yet, we are called the underdeveloped country, the uncivilized people, the poverty-stricken people, the people who are dying of diseases and hunger. And yet, these people have made us to be so. But thank God, some of the countries in Africa and even the Caribbean have opened their eyes. We can see Ibrahim Traoré, who has actually stood with Burkina Faso, innovated, built. I was looking at the other day, the 50 unit, 50,000 units he's building for the people of Burkina Faso. The great hospital that has been built for the people of Burkina Faso and for Africa at large. So President like Ibrahim Traoré actually shows us Africa and Caribbeans can do it. And not only him, we have leaders like Michael Mandry, who was the Prime Minister of Jamaica. We have leaders like Motri, who is actually campaigning on African freedom and African unity. And they are very great leaders in the Caribbean that have worked tirelessly to see the unity of Africa, the developing of Africa, to see Africa moving from ashes to grace. And I hope that God will continue helping us. Actually, according to this man, there will be a time the West people will actually be so poor and Africa will have risen because they are opening their eyes. They are coming to understand. They are coming to comprehend. They are coming to believe in themselves. They are coming to strategize on how to actually work on their own without interference politically, financially, culturally, and so on. So, thank you to people like President Ibrahim Traore, who has showed us that Africans can actually do without interference from the other nations. This man has also talked about China. China was oppressed. We looked at China. They actually came to Jamaica as slaves. But we have seen China has gone so way ahead of the developed countries in their technology, in their innovation, in their culture, in their everything. So it's possible for Africa to be up there when we unite, when we work together, when we believe in ourselves, when we leave aside inferiority complex and embrace, yes, we can. We can go to the next level of development, next level of independence, next level of self-reliance, next level of actually depending on ourselves for food, for security, for everything that we require as a continent. And the Caribbean is the same. We have the ability, like he was talking about, the Africa is so rich. I heard President Kagame talking about the riches of Africa, the great Africa that can actually come from the cocoon of just talking and go to the cocoon of implementing, doing by actions and not words. I loved the words of President Kagame as he was talking to Africans at large and even wherever the black man is, even in the Caribbean, telling us to believe in ourselves, telling us to work hard, to trust ourselves that we can. And we are going to take our nations to the next level of prosperity and accountability and to the next level of actually being a global icon in everything we do. But for us to do that, we have to believe in ourselves, we have to work hard, we have to remove every stigma that has been put on us and believe that we are capable. We have made the developed countries. We can make ourselves by the strength that God has given us. So that will be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching me. I hope you have learned a lot from this Arab man and you have realized how great the Africans and the Caribbeans are and how they can stand on their own to be a global icon in all areas. Thank you and bye-bye.